What's going on, everyone? This is Gaurav and welcome to my learning channel. So in today's video, we're going to learn about data joins. So first of all, we'll try to understand what are data joins and why do we need it. And we'll try to understand some of these things with the help of few of the examples. And then afterwards, we'll dive into the details of different type of joins. So we'll take a look at left join, right join, inner join, and outer join. So for this video, we'll only take a look at the concepts for each one of these different joins. And in the next video, we'll take a look at the coding aspect of it for the different type of joins using different coding languages. So depending upon which playlist you are in, we're going to have videos for Python, Pyspark, and SQL. So without any further delay, let's get started. So first of all, let's take a look at the dictionary definition of join. So as per the dictionary, and this is something that I have copied from internet, it says a data join is when two data sets are combined in a side-by-side manner. Therefore, at least one column in each data set must be the same. So the definition is not very sophisticated. However, it will do the job. It does explain the basic tenet of joins. Let's try to understand this with a simple example. Let's say you have a table. The first table is customer detail. So for this table, you have variables like customer ID, name, state, and age. And for each one of these variables, you have different records. So you have customer ID 1 with the person named Ram and state ID as CA, which is California, and then age is 25. And similarly, you have other data records for this table as well. Now you have another table which is called transaction detail. For this table, you have transaction detail for each of the customers. So you have three variables. So you have customer ID, date, and amount. And for each customer, you have multiple records. So over here you can see for customer ID 1 for January 1st you have amount 100, for customer ID 1 again for date January 2nd you have $200 and so on. So one of the key difference between these two tables is first table is unique at a customer ID level, which means that for each customer you only have one record. For second one, it's unique at a transaction level, so each customer can have multiple records. So as you can see, you have two records for customer 1, one record for customer 2, and two records for customer 3. Now let's say if someone asks you that I would like to join these two information and I would like to have a giant table where I have details for both of the tables. So that new table could be designed in a way so that you have variables like customer ID, name, state, age. But apart from that, I would also like to have date and amount as a part of the same table, which could look something like this. So in this table, you can see you have customer ID, you have name, you have age, state, age, date, and amount. Now, all of the details are populated here, which is nothing but a combination of the details, which is coming from the first table and the second table. Now, a few of the key things to note over here is that in the first table for customer ID 1, you had just one record. And in the second table for customer ID 1, you had two records. As a result of which, in the resulting table for customer ID 1, you have two different records. So for the first record, you can see that the name, state, age is exactly the same as it was populated in the first table, but you have details for first transaction, which happened on January 1st, that was for $100. For the second record, again, the name, state, age remains exactly the same. So first record and the second record, all of the information which is coming from first table is exactly the same. The only key difference here is related to the information which is coming from second table, which is date and amount for the transactions being done by this customer. Similarly, for other customers, you have similar number of records. So for second customer, you have one record. For third customer, you have two records. So as you can see, the total number of records over here is 5, and over here as well, you have exactly same 5 number of records. So this is the classic example of join and probably the simplest example of join as well. Now, one more thing I would like to mention here is that join and merge oftentimes gets used interchangeably. So if someone says that let's merge these two tables or let's join these two tables, they're talking about probably the exact same thing. However, union is something different. So in today's video, we are not going to talk about union, but rather we will only focus on joins. So just to summarize, in this particular example, we have joined two tables, customer details and transaction details based off of customer ID. So hopefully this would have given you a somewhat good understanding of what a join means with the help of this simple example. Now let's dive into the details of different type of joins. So we'll first of all get started with left join. For each of the different joins, we will stick to the same table structure. So we'll always be talking about these two tables, which is your customer details and transaction details. However, the only difference would be the different records that you have for each one of these tables. So definitely keep an eye out for the details that you have for each one of these tables. So for instance, in this particular example for customer details, you only have two customers. In the previous example, we saw that we had three customers. We had customer ID 1, 2, and 3. However, in order for us to understand left join, we are only keeping two customer IDs in the first table, which is your customer details. But on the other hand, for transaction details, pretty much everything remains the same. So you have transaction details for customer ID 1, 2, and 3, and the number of records remains 5, which was exactly the same as we have seen earlier. Now, if I ask you to join these two tables when there is a mismatch between number of customer IDs between these two tables, would you keep customer ID 3 in your output or not? Because in the first table, you only have two customers, and in the second table, you have three different customers. The answer is that it really depends upon the type of join. So if it is a left join, then we are not going to keep it. If it is a right join, then we will keep it. If it is an inner join, then it's a completely different story altogether. However, before we get into the details of why customer ID 3 is being dropped when we are doing a left join, let's first of all understand what is a left join with the help of a simple Venn diagram. So in this slide, we have drawn a simple Venn diagram to understand left join. Customer details is painted in red, and we are calling that as a left table, and transaction detail is painted in blue, and we are calling that as a right table. Now you might be thinking that why are we calling this as a left and a right? But some of these things will probably become a little bit more clearer when we will start to code it, because the inspiration for the same is really coming from the coding aspect of it. So for now, let's just assume that customer details is the table which we are going to refer it as a left, and transaction detail will be your right. Now, if we have to join these two tables via left join, then let's see what happens. So it will keep everything that you have as a part of a left table. So the definition over here says that it returns all the records from the left table and the matched record from the right table. As per this Venn diagram, we are going to keep all the records that you have in the entire red table, but apart from that, we are also going to keep this shaded area, which is the matched table. So as you can see that you have two different parts. The first part is the records from the left table, which is this area, and then you also have the matched record from the right table, which is this shaded area. So we are going to keep everything. So what are we losing? We are losing the data which is only present in the right table, and it does not have any presence in the left table. So now let's go back to the example that we have just seen, and let's try to implement this same logic. So as I mentioned earlier, that on the left side, you have customer details, and on the right side, you have transaction details. We just learned that if we have to merge these two tables or join these two tables via left join, then we are going to keep everything that you have as a part of a left table. And apart from that, we are also going to keep everything that you have which is overlapping, which is present in both the tables. So you have customer ID 1 and 2 and customer ID 1 and 2. So we are going to keep all the records for 1 and 2. Now, as you can see that customer ID 3 is only present in right table. So we are not going to keep that. And because of which, this is how your output is going to look like. So you have all of the variables being present here. You have customer ID, you have name, state, age, date, and amount. But as you can see that as a part of output, you only have details for customer ID 1 and customer ID 2. You don't have any information for customer ID 3. So you can say that this will be a data loss where you have lost the information for customer ID 3. Again, to reiterate, as a part of a left join, you will keep all the details for the table which is on the left side, which is customer details in this particular instance. And then apart from that, you're also going to keep all the details which is in the overlapping section, which is information which is coming from transaction details. Now let's look at another example for the left join. However, in this case, you will have more record in the left table and less records in the right table. So let's see if that happens, then how are we going to join the tables? So in this example, for the left table, which is customer details, now you have three customers. So you have customer ID 1, 2, and 3. However, on the right side, now you don't have any customer ID 3. So you only have details for customer ID 1 and customer ID 2, and you have the transaction details for the same. Now again, as you can see that I have kept the table structure exactly the same for all of the different examples that we have discussed so far. So if we have to join these two tables, we will again go ahead and apply the same logic that we have just learned. So we are going to keep all the details for the left table and the overlapping section for the right table. So in this example, we will keep 1, 2, and 3, and the overlapping section will be details that is pertaining to right section. Now for the places where right section is not present, we are just going to mark that as a null. So now let's see how the new table structure looks like. This is your output. As you can see that these are different variables, which is exactly the same. So you have customer ID, name, state, age, and date and amount. We have details for all the three customers. So you have customer ID 1, 2, and 3. As we have just discussed, you have details for all the three customers. Now the only difference you can see here is that you have null when it comes to third customer, which is Charlie, because you don't have any details for customer ID 3. I think I have made a mistake here. You won't have the absolute last record. You will just have this record. But again, just to summarize, if we are doing a left join, we are keeping all the details for the left side, and for the right side, wherever it is present, which is your overlapping section, we are also keeping those details. So hopefully this would have given you a good idea about how to do a left join. Now let's extrapolate these learnings to the right join. So now let's say that we have to do a right join. Again, the table structure, etc. remains exactly the same. On left side, you have customer details. On right side, you have transaction details. Right is in blue, left is in red. And if we have to do the right join, then it will look something like this. So we are keeping everything that you have as a part of the right table. And apart from that, we are also keeping everything that you have in the overlapping section. Now let's implement it to the same example that we have just seen. So you have customer details on the left side, you have customer ID, name, state, and age. And as you can see that now you have just two customers. So you have customer ID 1 and customer ID 2. And on the right hand side, you have a transaction details. However, as a part of the transaction details, now you have details for all the three customers. So you have two records for customer ID 1, one record for customer ID 2, and two records for customer ID 3. So if we have to join these two tables with a right join, then the output would look something like this. So you have customer ID, you have name, state, age, date, and amount. Now you can see that for the right hand side, you have all the records. So you have January 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, which is what has been mentioned here. You have the amounts as well for each one of these things. But you can see that name, state, and age is only present for first two customers, which is customer ID 1 and customer ID 2, because those are the only information that we have available from first table. We don't have any name, state, and age available from the first table for customer ID 3, and that's why wherever it is not available, then we are going to go ahead and put it as a null. Now you might be thinking that how come I keep on changing customer ID R and customer ID L? Again, this is something that will become more clearer when we will start to code some of these things in one of the coding languages. However, now for now, you can just simply assume that whenever it says R, I am mentioning that as a part of the output, I would like to get the customer ID which is present in your right table. And whenever it says L, which is customer ID L, then I'm asking the prompt that get me the customer ID which is coming from the left table. So L is for left and R is for right. So to summarize, we have joined two table, which is right join based off of customer ID, and there hasn't been any kind of a data loss because number of records for the right table is more as compared to left table in this particular example. So with that, now let's move on to inner join. Hopefully by now you would have already figured out what's going to happen as a part of an inner join. And if you have guessed it, that as output, you will only have the shaded region, then you are absolutely 100% right. So let's try to understand this. So in the left hand side, again, you have a customer details, which is painted in red. And on the right hand side, you have transaction detail, which is painted in blue. And if we have to do the inner join, then as a part of the output, we are only going to have details which is common in both left and the right table. So the definition says that it will return records that have matching values in both the tables. So it should have commonality from the both left and the right table. And that's pretty much evident from the name itself. So you have left join where we have kept all the records which is in the left table. You have right join where we have kept all the records in the right table. And now we have inner join where we are keeping all the records which is overlapping, which is common in both the tables left and right. Let's try to understand this with the help of a simple example. So again, the table structure sort of remains the same. You have customer details on the left side, you have transaction details on the right side. Now I have made a little bit of a change. So you have customer ID 4 as well with the exact same detail as you have seen earlier for customer ID 1. So I've just replaced it for the sake of this example. And then you have customer ID 2. And in the second table, you have details for customer ID 1, 2, and 3. So if we have to merge these two tables with the inner join, you can see that the only thing which is common between these two tables is details for customer ID 2. So as an output, you can expect that you will have details for only customer ID 2. So let's see how the output looks like. This is how it's going to look like. So you will have customer ID on the right hand side. Again, we are keeping R here, which is right hand side, and you will have details for customer ID 2, which is Sam, Texas 24, Jan 3rd, and $300. So the join key is customer ID. Now, one more thing I would like to quickly mention is that the join key does not have to be just one variable. You can also have multiple variables. So you can join two tables based on customer ID, comma, date, comma, XYZ, or anything like that. So you can have as many variables as you want if you want to join two different tables. However, to make things simpler, for now, I have just used one variable. But when we are going to code some of these things in Python or SQL, then we will take a look at a few of the examples where we will have more than one variables. Now let's take a look at the last type of join, which is called outer join. So again, the table structure remains the same. You have customer details on the left hand side, you have transaction details on the right hand side. And if you have to join these, then you will have the records for both the tables. As per the definition, it says returns all the records when there is a match in either left or the right table, meaning there's not going to be any kind of a data loss. You will have all the information which is contained in the left table and the right table and the overlapping section as a part of the output. Now let's try to understand outer join with the help of a simple example. Again, I have kept the table structure exactly the same. So you have customer details and you have transaction details. Now let's quickly go through the details for each one of the table. You have details for customer ID 1 and 2 in first table, and you have details for customer ID 2 and 3 in the second table. Now, if this would have been an inner join, then as an output, you should have details for only customer ID 2. However, given this is the outer join, you should expect the output to have details for each one of the customers. So you should have output for customer ID 1, 2 and 3, which is exactly you can see on the right hand side. Now I have also added customer ID which is coming from right table and customer ID for which is coming from left table to help you better understand where the information is coming from. But apart from that, you have rest of the variable which is exactly the same as we have seen in some of the early examples. So you have name, state, age, date and amount. Now let's go through the details for each of the customers. So let's get started with the first customer, which is customer ID 1. As you can see that we have details for customer ID 1 in the first table, which is your left table, but you don't have any information pertaining to customer ID 1 in the right table. There is, as you can see, that you don't have any customer ID 1 here, and that's why it is null. Similarly, in the customer details section, you do have information contained for name, state and age. So you can see you have RAM, CA and 25, but you don't have any information for date and amount because on the right hand side, you don't have any information. Now you can see that even though information is missing, the table structure sort of remains exactly the same. So it doesn't matter whether you have the information available or not, there won't be any kind of impact on the table structure. For second customer, which is customer ID 2, you have details coming from both the tables and that's why all the variables are populated. For customer ID 3, you don't have any information coming from the first table. That's why all the details for the left table, which is customer ID L, name, state, age is null. But apart from that, date and amount, which is coming from the right table, is populated. So you have Jan 4, 5th, and you have $400 and $500 being properly populated. Again, the join key here is customer ID. However, as I mentioned earlier, that you can have multiple join keys as well. So if the corresponding tables have more than one variables, you could potentially go ahead and use that as well. Hopefully this would have given you a good idea about different types of joins. Quick summary for different type of joins. So you have left join, which returns all the records from the left table and the matched record from the right table. Right join is returns all the record from the right table and matched record from the left table. And inner join is returns only the matched record which is coming from both left and the right table. And outer join returns all the records when there is a match in either left or right table. So at a high level, these are the only details that you will need to understand when it comes to joins. However, once we start coding it, then there are some other intricacies and the details that will become more clearer. And as I have said earlier, the best way to learn some of these concepts is to start getting your hands dirty and start coding it with some simple examples. So in the next video, we'll try to look at a few of the examples where we'll try to merge two tables with left join, right join, inner join, and outer join. That's all for this video. Thank you so much and have a great day.